Hey, how about that? The technology is actually working and we started on time. So welcome everyone. I thought we'd just do our usual and do introductions so that we know who's online and who is in the room. I think probably most of you recognize my voice, but this is Tracy.
Bruce Newell.
I'm Sarah McLean.
Jenny Stapp.
Kara Orban.
All right. So
Honor Bray.
Hey, Honor. So let's just go ahead and go down the list. So Cody, do you happen to have a mic? Want to get us started? You may not have a mic yet. So Cody is with us from Billings, and Dana is here. You just heard Honor. Jody is online.
Hello.
From Boulder. Kate Peterson from Helena. Pam, our statewide consulting librarian. Pamela Benjamin from Trails and Susan McIntyre. And we were just joined in the room by Sonia and Stacy. So welcome everyone. So the first item on your agenda is the approval of the March 14th, 2019 minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Okay. Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, we understand, Cody. We've been there.
I make the motion we accept the minutes from the meeting.
And have a
March.
second?
March. Yeah, March. I remember I was right.
May I have a second from someone?
I second from Dana. Oh.
All right. Yeah, it's hard to pick online. All right. Any further discussion? So for those of you who are online, you can just vote using chat, because I know some of you have mics and some of you don't. So all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please chat aye or say aye.
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 That was pretty cute, Jody.
I didn't see. Did she use an emoji?
She used the letter I.
Oh, okay.
If anyone opposes, please type nay or say nay.
And this is Bruce, and I abstained since I wasn't there, so I have no idea.
Are there any other abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. So, our agenda is.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I want to share a few updates with you. First of all, a legislative update. As you all probably know, the legislature adjourned about the third week in April, and the governor is now working his way through signing a number of bills, including House Bill 2, the state budget bill, and one of the other bills before him is House Bill 633. I talked about the funding in this bill at your March meeting, but essentially what exists in the state budget for the state library for the coming fiscal year is a fairly significant increase in our funding for FTE through present law adjustments. We had, after the 2017 session, laid off about 9 FTE. We have refilled at this point 3 FTE, and with this increase in funding, we're currently planning to fill another 5 positions. So that would bring us back to the staffing levels that we were roughly at prior to the budget cuts. Bruce wisely pointed out at the April Commission meeting that we shouldn't say we are fully staffed, because we don't believe we have adequate staffing resources at this point. But we will, with these hires, be back to the staffing levels that we were at prior to the budget cuts. We're not filling the positions in exactly the same way. The 5 positions that we're currently hiring would be a data coordinator, management analyst. This is a position that is intended to help the agency really continue the data-driven planning and analysis work that we started a few years ago. This position would be responsible for helping all of our program staff to analyze the various programs and projects that we're administering, to think about the kinds of data that we need to be collecting to help us measure the inputs and outputs and outcomes and impacts of those services, and to use that data to effectively plan for those program administration, to identify resource gaps that we need to fill, and then to help us with the wide variety of reporting that we're responsible for, including reporting to the Institute of Museums and Library Services, to the Commission, to the legislature, to auditors, and so forth. So we think that that position will be one that will both help staff with our current data management and reporting workloads, and also really help us to further our goals of being more deliberate in our planning and evaluation. We're also planning to hire a data tech. This will be more of a library tech position with a focus on data management and metadata that can help support the data coordinator and also help us with our goals of continuing to better integrate the different digital collections that we manage through better data management and metadata. We're planning to hire an entry-level web developer to continue to support some of our custom web applications and help us take better advantage of off-the-shelf web administration tools. And then we're talking about hiring 2 GIS techs. When we went through the budget cuts a couple of years ago, we laid off 4 more professional GIS analyst level positions, and instead of filling those 4 positions, we would be filling 2 FTE with more of a tech level position rather than the professional analyst positions. And those positions will help us with some of the growing backlog of GIS data work that's gone undone since we've had these budget cuts. In addition to funding for FTE, House Bill 2 also has $250,000 in one-time only monies for this biennium. And that funding is intended to help the state library bridge a gap between now and the 2021 legislative session. Between now and then, what House Bill 633 mandates is that the Legislative Finance Committee, which is an interim committee of the legislature, undertake an interim study to identify different revenue sources for the state library, specific, dedicated, stable sources of funding. There's some questions that we have about what that is intended to do, whether or not these revenue sources are intended to be in addition to the general fund that we already have, if at some point they're intended to supplant the general fund. Some of those kinds of questions remain to be seen. As I said, we don't feel like the funding we currently have is adequate. We don't feel like the staffing we have is adequate, and what those needs are and how we would use additional funding would be part of what we would convey during this interim study.
Who's going to be involved in this study? Obviously, you guys and
The state library, the study itself hasn't been scoped yet.
Okay.
The Legislative Finance Committee has a meeting right around May 20th, but I don't have that exact date off the top of my head. And so it's at that meeting that they'll lay out their work plan, and hopefully we'll find out more Amy Carlson is the head of Legislative Finance Division, and so she and her staff will be the staff resources behind the study. And then I think it will involve any number of stakeholders from the library community and potential stakeholders from other communities that might be tapped for different kinds of revenue. So a lot to learn, a lot to be seen between now and then. So as I was saying, this $250,000 in House Bill 2 is intended to be a bridge between now and when hopefully the study comes up with good ideas that can then be enacted through the 2021 legislative session. We haven't fully determined how we will expend all of that $250,000. In the cuts that we took last biennium, we cut our contract for the Montana Natural Heritage Program operations, the program that delivers all of the data about Montana's plants and animals. We cut that contract by $230,000. And so we know we need to help restore some of that funding. I don't know that we can restore all of it with the $250,000, but that will be one of our top priorities. Of course, we need to have some additional funding as we're hiring new staff for some of their needs. One of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that we need to make sure that we have adequate funding for training and travel and professional development for all of our professional staff. That funding has been eroded over the years, and so that would be a priority as well. So those are the kinds of decisions that we have to make here in the next several weeks about that kind of funding. The state aid funding for public libraries is there in existence. Nobody changed that state aid legislation, and that funding exists. So we'll be able to once again deliver state aid to public libraries dependent on libraries meeting the public library standards. There were a handful of other bills that we were monitoring throughout the session, nothing that had any real consequence for libraries or the library community at this point. I think the legislation that would have provided more definition around service animals ended up being tabled. The bill that would have called for net neutrality was also tabled. So I think those were some of the other pieces of legislation. Of course, the one regarding pornography was also tabled, thankfully so. I think a relatively quiet session from a legislation standpoint. And I'll reiterate what I've said throughout the session. We heard such good, strong, positive support for the state library and for libraries in general throughout discussions about funding. And I think it's for that reason that we're seeing this study come to fruition. Any questions about the legislature? Tracy, is there anything you would add?
No, I mean, I felt like it was a really overall positive session.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of nice going into it because 2017 was a pretty challenging session. So it was nice to have a recognition that we add value and libraries add value.
Yeah.
That really meant a lot.
It did.
If I could add, this is Bruce. From the Commission's point of view, we've been interested in the data analyst evaluation sort of position for some time. If not specifically interested in the position per se, but just in the interested in being able to better know when we're doing well and being able to share that with stakeholders, including actually the Montana library community. And I would say that we're looking forward to making some progress with this, with adding some FTE or an FTE to help us with this, but that hopefully not only will this allow the state library to know when it's doing well and to communicate that, to share that with the library community and our other partners, but also that works in reverse so that we do a better job with not only our traditional partners like libraries, public libraries and federations, but also some of our other partners in the GIS and local government community, that we're more transparent to one another and build relationships, increase trust, and continue kind of down the road that we're headed of working together towards better serving Montanans. That's the hope.
Mhm.
A modest hope.
On the federal funding side, Congress is starting to work on the FY20 federal budget. What we are hearing at this point is that the House is calling for about a $15 million increase to the budget for IMLS. How that $15 million would be applied within the agency has not yet been stated, so we don't know that that whole amount would be allotted to the LSTA grant program, or if some of it would go to other priorities within IMLS, but an increase nonetheless. I think on the Senate side, people are feeling like it would be less likely that we would see that kind of increase on the Senate side. And of course, they have to come to a compromise. So we're not hearing anything about budget cuts, and possibly an increase, but how much of an increase and whether or not that can make it through both chambers remains to be seen. Still very, very early days in planning for the federal budget at this point. I keep saying we're going to get $300,000 more, but I think everybody is looking at me like I'm crazy. Good crazy, yes. Yep.
Hopeful.
And then a couple of other updates on some things that we talked about at your previous meeting. You provided some really helpful input on structuring a pilot with the Digital Public Library of America and helping us think about how we might make use of their ebook marketplace and ebook platform. Since that time, we've gone through a procurement process with the state to allow us to partner with the DPLA, and by extension through them with Lyrasis as the provider of the hosting platform. We're still in the process of signing that contract before we can actually begin working with them. But in the meantime, we've laid out, I think, some pretty clear measurable goals that we want to see accomplished through the pilot. Again, much of it informed by the discussion we had at this last meeting, and thinking specifically about being able to add new and different kinds of content, how having access to this platform would help to alleviate some of the concerns with the long hold queues, hopefully to get better licensing agreements with ebook providers, being able to bring to bear the different kinds of e-content that the state library currently manages, and so forth. We have some libraries that have expressed interest in being partners with us. We want to pilot it for at least a couple of years so that we know that we're successful. We want to have a mix of shared catalog and non-shared catalog libraries pilot it with us, and that's really a test for Lyrasis, because for those shared catalog libraries, managing the authentication and integration is much more seamless than it is for non-shared catalog libraries that have their own ILSs. We want to be able to test both of those needs. And then we'll be testing how we can integrate, again, some of the state libraries' e-content through the Internet Archive that's the provider of our state publications platform and so forth. Kara, I'm going to need you to help me remember what libraries have expressed interest. I know the Great Falls Public Library, and I don't have my notes with me to help me.
We have Missoula, Butte, tentatively Bozeman, and Sheridan County.
Great, that's right. Great. So a mix of large and small. So I'm excited about that opportunity moving forward. And then the fair access resolution is continuing to be open for public comment. We've created a summary document of all the comments we've received to date, including all of the comments we received from the Network Advisory Council. It's been discussed now at the Montana Library Association conference, at the Conversations with Commission, and we've had 4 of the 6 Federation meetings so far, and so we've discussed it at all of those meetings. I think we've gotten some really great comments to date. Some of the comments reflected how inclusive the resolution might be, making sure that nobody felt like they were being excluded. And I think the sense of the commission right now is, rather than delineating everyone who should have fair access to library materials. It's better just to recognize that we intend to be inclusive of everyone, and that if we try to delineate everyone, somebody's going to be left out inadvertently. Some of the other feedback that we've heard is around really focusing on communities versus individuals, and that's some feedback that the commission is going to continue to consider. I hope that the commission will be able to take action to adopt a resolution at their June commission meeting. So I encourage you to be a part of that, and the comments that we've received so far are available online if you want to review any of those. And then we have some really specific actions that we want to take coming out of the resolution, one of which is looking at the public library standards. We want to revise and update the public library standards. This is something that's been on our to-do list for quite a while now. We want them to reflect this fair access resolution. We want the resolution to really be the why behind the public library standards, so that the public library standards are a measure of helping us achieve what the resolution spells out for the state library and the library community. And we also want the standards to better reflect the work of 21st century libraries, the work of being more focused on our communities. We've been, as you know, working on updating the Library Development Study Task Force recommendations to reflect more data-driven planning and analysis, and we think the standards can also better reflect those recommendations. So we'll be working in the next couple of months to seat a task force of librarians to help us look at standards that exist around the country, what other kinds of key metrics that we would want to include in a future rollout of revised public library standards. I think we're thinking about FY 22 or 21 or 22.
21 is when it would start.
They would start, so a little bit of time before they would take effect.
This is Bruce again. So I've been tasked with rolling the draft of that resolution forward for Commission's consideration. A lot of the responses we've gotten have been very helpful and will be incorporated into the draft. Some of them are equally valuable, but are really not specifically on target with what we're working on with the draft. I would hope that and won't be incorporated likely won't be incorporated into the resolution, although maybe they will be, but I'm anticipating they won't. But they'll be appended to the draft in the form of these increasingly long and tedious footnotes or endnotes. I think that the Network Advisory Council is probably best placed to kind of then push those forward, if presuming that the resolution is adopted, because many of these things really deserve to be addressed and need to be addressed, but they just aren't centrally on topic to the resolution in hand. I wouldn't want them to be lost, and so hopefully there'll be some process of making sure that those sort of continue either as a resolution or other specific actions suggested by staff.
Good. And then the other sort of specific action, which is probably a little bit more long-term coming out of the resolution, is taking the time to really think deliberately about what we mean by a useful information infrastructure. You're all familiar with our strategic framework that says that the state library will create this useful information infrastructure. And we sort of conceptually know what that means, but it's difficult to articulate. And there's probably more behind what that infrastructure could be than we've given thought to. We know that it needs to include different kinds of technology that works effectively together. We know that it needs to include the staff of our library and the staff of libraries around the state. It needs to include good information to help meet our patrons' information needs. It needs to include programming resources that help to further serve our patrons' information needs. We would like to, I think, hire a consultant that can help us better think through what that architecture and infrastructure might be, what pieces we already have in place, how we might think about those pieces working together more effectively, what pieces are lacking or where the gaps are that we could then prioritize for development, prioritize for potential funding, be able to talk about during an interim study as we're thinking about new enhanced funding needs, and so forth. So another concrete deliverable where we say if the resolution is putting forward the vision and the why for the work that we do, what kinds of infrastructure resources are necessary to help us accomplish those goals. Any thoughts, questions, concerns about what that might look like?
So Jenny, this is Dana Carmichael.
Dana?
And I just wanted to put this on your radar. COLE is actually pulling together a committee of school librarians to rewrite the school library standards.
Okay.
And the AASL has just released their new standards for school libraries as well.
Great. Thanks for that heads up.
Okay.
I think, again, we'll certainly be leaning on the NAC to help us as we think about and envision what this infrastructure should look like. There's a lot of pieces already in place, from the shared catalog to Montana Library to Go, the courier, all of, again, the programming and information resources that we have across the state library, in your libraries, through the Montana Memory Project, and so forth. We want to make sure that we're bringing those resources together effectively and efficiently. We want to understand where the challenges continue to exist and what options we might have to continue to further develop that infrastructure. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about some staffing updates that we're exploring here within our existing staff at the State Library. We have one vacant FTE right now, and we've talked to the NAC previously about the need for some system administration support for the Montana Shared Catalog. As you know, we've had a moratorium on new applications from libraries to join the shared catalog this year until we can address the staffing concerns with the needed support for system administration. Tracy has decided to take the open consulting position. It's a position that will allow her to work remotely. And so we're encouraging her to do that and take care of some of her family needs, but also help be able to continue to support libraries and support the work of the state library. So we're grateful that she'll be able to remain with us. We are tentatively planning to use the FTE to fill a shared catalog system admin position, and at least in the near term, not planning to fill the library development director position. And we're exploring what that means from an organizational standpoint. But what we're thinking and what we're hearing from staff is that we really are one agency. We are the Montana State Library. Staff have asked the question, why do we refer to ourselves as library development and the digital library when we're all doing library development work and we're all supporting Montanans' information needs? So a lot of the thinking behind this exploration is how we can use the resources that we currently have to better deliver library development services to Montana libraries and library services to Montana patrons, recognizing that we don't have adequate resources, but trying to make the most effective use of the resources that we have. I told Bruce earlier I wouldn't be exploring this at all if I didn't know we had such terrific, passionate, professional, motivated, creative staff who are ready to take on all of these challenges. And I think we can provide them great guidance and vision, but I don't think it will in any way hamper our ability to do great library development. In my opinion, as we think about flattening the agency, it only brings more resources to bear for library development around the state. So change isn't easy. It comes with lots of questions and concerns, and so we're trying to be very thoughtful and considerate of people's questions, concerns. We're really trying to understand our agency pain points and how we might best resolve some of those pain points as we're going through this process. Tracy will assume her new position in July, so we still have a little bit of time to work through some of those really specific details. But I wanted to make you all aware of some of those discussions that are happening within the agency. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Do you know who will you continue to direct the NAC or
Good question. Right now, what we're talking about is me chairing the NAC, but with sort of joint staff support from Tracy and Kara.
Kara and I will be peers, and I will actually take a lead role and oversee consulting continuing education and lifelong learning.
I want to make sure everybody online can hear you.
Oh, could everyone hear me when I said that? Because I am kind of a little ways away from.
It's very difficult to hear when you're speaking. You can hear Jenny.
Okay, that's because Jenny's sitting right by a mic. How about now?
That's better.
Okay, so what I was going to say is Kara and I will be peers, and I will be taking a lead role in overseeing consulting, continuing education, and lifelong learning. And Kara will be overseeing the collaborative efforts.
This is the question about the NAC raises a point I wanted to make. The structure is much more parallel to the structure we have for the Land Information Advisory Council, which is our GIS Advisory Council, where again I chair that committee and we have other staff that staff it. Other questions or comments? Okay, that's it.
So
I forgot one thing.
yeah, go for it.
My list. We are really excited to be hosting a Research Institute for Public Libraries Ripple event in the state in October. It's going to be October 7th through the 9th in Billings. Ripple, if you're not familiar with it, is a conference that focuses on data and metrics and reporting. It's been hosted by the Colorado State Library for a number of years with grant funding from IMLS. And now they have moved to a regional Ripple model where these Ripple conferences are being held in different states around the country. And so we are going to be hosting one in Montana. It's going to be a joint conference with Wyoming. Registration is going to be limited. It's going to open up July 1. And I think it's going to be limited to 50 participants. That's a Ripple requirement, not one of our requirements. They want to keep the conference a little bit smaller because it's very, very focused on hands-on learning. But one of the things that Tracy and I are excited about is sort of a pre-conference that we're planning. Annie Norman, who is the state librarian from Delaware, is going to be offering a pre-conference workshop. The Delaware State Library has been doing data-driven planning and evaluation for going on 20 years. So this is something that's very ingrained in their thinking. And we wanted to have her come out and do this workshop to really set the stage for why this kind of work is important, to really set the groundwork for good positive learning over the next couple of days. And so I'm really, really excited to have another state librarian come out and talk about how they've been doing this kind of work for a long time. So look for that registration to open up in early July. I think it's going to be a great event.
So do you have 50 participants in mind, or what you would like to see at that meeting?
I think Tracy and I were talking about this a little bit. We hope to build a cohort of people who really understand why collecting data and doing data-driven planning and evaluation is important, and are ready to kind of hit the ground running with the learning that comes from Ripple. And so I think the people that will get the most out of the conference and help us build that cohort are people that have that kind of thinking in mind.
And this is Bruce. I went to it, 4 or 5 years ago with Tracy and Kara in Denver, and it changed the way I looked at libraries. I mean, it was a great conference. And so if you're even slightly interested, I really encourage you to mark the time off and go. Yep. It's a great conference.
Yep.
I was on the commission. We were engaged in the process of thinking about renewing our strategic plan, which was really old and moldy at that point. And we had sort of a kind of a general path sort of picked out. And an hour into the conference, I came up to Kara and to Tracy, and I said, "Oh, we're going down the wrong road. We got to completely rethink this." And Jenny had been exposed to this before, so she was up for it, and the commission agreed to it. But it really changed what we did, and for the better, I hope.
Well, sometimes I think statistics that are important to us as library directors for our community and not necessarily important for you with your planning. So.
Yep. One of the things that I hope Annie will talk about is an effort called Measures That Matter, which is a national effort to completely rethink the public library statistics that we collect. Because I completely agree that we need to be collecting statistics that can really tell the library story, and a lot of the public library statistics that we collect right now don't do that effectively.
But for me, it wasn't just thinking about statistics, although clearly that's important. But for me, it was thinking about how do we tell we're doing well, and what is that sort of whole institutional planning process, and sort of mindset that's required to more effectively kind of think about what our job is in figuring out how we're doing it. And that to me was the valuable part.
And sometimes when you collect a stat, it's how many people use your library. The more question to me is not how many people use it, but what are they using it for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
100 people came in today, but so what?
But why are they here?
Exactly.
And what did they take away?
Yeah.
How did it work for them? And harder yet, how do we know? And it leads you down those kind of questions, which we're still working on, right?
Yeah.
But it was really all kind of triggered by Ripple. I really encourage you guys to think about going. It was terrific.
That's really interesting because we just did, the homeless outreach team in Missoula just did a survey when they did their full night count of how many homeless people there are, and 5 questions were about library use.
Wow.
And the number one reason homeless people in Missoula use their library is to read.
Wow.
And they were knocked off their feet. They thought it was going to be either computers or videos or something like that. And 79% said we do it to learn and read. So that was amazing. And we could tell people that because we see them in here reading, but they would never believe it because they think they just come to play games on the computer.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That's
good idea.
Powerful.
Thank you.
Cool. RIPL, Research Institute for Public Libraries.
Not the oversweet wine that we all drank back in college days
Yeah.
Straw.
Yeah.
with a straw in a brown paper bag.
I love it.
Okay, now I'm done, I promise.
That's fine. I think you covered one of the later agendas.
Oh, I did? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we
that's
will
right.
move on now to the MSC New Libraries funding proposal. So you now know what our solution is. And so I would like to bring to the NAC, Kara and I, a proposal to allocate up to $20,000 of coal tax funds to add new libraries.
So that would be for what fiscal year?
So our application opens in January of 2020, so it would be done before June 30th, because that's when the funds have to be spent, June 30th.
So it could be, okay.
And, we may be open to opening it sooner, but you have to onboard the person and train them before you start adding new libraries, if that makes sense. So that
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Do you have libraries that have already applied that you just put on hold?
We've had 2 inquiries.
Would $20,000 be sufficient for onboarding those libraries?
Probably.
Do you need a motion to do that? Or are we just approving that you do that?
We would need a motion.
If you're going to recommend that, because if you're going to recommend that to be sent forward to the commission, if $20,000 is not sufficient, I would encourage you to modify your motion to have it sufficient.
Do you need more?
It depends on whether we have additional inquiries.
I always like, as a commissioner, to get things, monies to onboard libraries not to exceed from the source. If that would help you guys at all, that would be great for us as well.
I think what makes this challenging, to be honest, is we don't know who's going to apply. We have obviously a couple inquiries, and that's led us to give you our best estimate of how much we would need, but we don't know who's going to apply.
But I mean, we could set a cap too, because if we have another large library join, that will be very labor intensive for our staff. So we may not actually want to bring on an unlimited number.
So does the up to 20 limit you then, Carol?
We have that.
Do you have that in the full severance?
Does that move it from something else you already had planned, or is this starting from, and then this is like the top priority, and then you'll be planning on other things?
I'll just go ahead and
The answer, Jenny, because I
Oh
did
yeah,
that.
you did have that.
I'll make it big. So even with the items we have so far, we have 58,614 in coal tax. We have a little bit less than that because later on in the agenda I'm going to talk about the NAC had asked Amelia to pull together some proposals for homelessness and civil discord and your priorities. So, but those, I've talked to Amelia, and it's not going to be a huge dollar amount. So it would be very easy to up this proposal to the 25,000.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed, yes.
So we can make a motion up to the 25.
Yes.
Okay, so I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Just cleans it up down the road.
Stacy, you seconded?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Go ahead. You're allowed to discuss.
I would just suggest that if we're going to be opening up an application period, that we should likely make that announcement as soon as possible so that we have a chance to evaluate who we could bring on and what those costs would be in case we need to revisit this question a little bit later
Does that
on.
need to be cleared by the commission first? Because it's by commission action that we froze applications.
Probably
So-
at the June meeting.
so-
And you'll be seeing this budget in the June meeting, so we can do both of those actions.
If you had a need to do it sooner, you could do either sort of a sense that it was going to be discussed, opening it at the next thing to give people kind of a sort of a anticipation, or you could call a special meeting.
I think June would be sufficient because, like Tracy said, we're still going to have to go through a hiring process.
Only a few weeks away.
Yeah, it really is.
Not that far away.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Vote.
So, let's see any questions online. So, all those in favor, please say aye. For those of you who are online, use chat. Aye.
Aye. Cool.
And all of those who are opposed, please say return nay. Are there any abstentions?
This is Susie, and I'm going to abstain because Great Falls Public Library is one of the libraries looking to join.
Yay! All right, motion carries.
By the way, someone out there in telephone land has got a one cycle engine going on occasionally. Kind of a womp, 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 womp. You might want to mute.
And Dana, thank you for sending us the AASL framework for learners. Okay, economic development funding proposal. So I am bringing this on behalf of Amelia. This was one of your funding priorities. And so Amelia and I reviewed kind of things you have said. We worked with Jenny and looked at some other Library Development Study Task Force recommendations. And so this is kind of the criteria we are coming up with to go through a limited solicitation process. And this is one of the things I've already shared this with Jenny. This was something I immediately saw as being really great to work across the state library agency. So I think Amelia and I will sit down with our peers in the GIS world, and then also Jessica Edwards, to just kind of talk about other resources the state library already provides and how to include that in the process. I would like to know, before you kind of vote on this, do you have anything that you think is missing or anything that you are concerned about on this list?
$10,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money.
No. I mean, Jenny wisely pointed out we could probably throw a whole bunch of money at this and use every penny of it. I think I would recommend not using up all the coal tax money just right now. And I recommend that for a couple of reasons. One is this is kind of cool and innovative, and we're not really sure what we're going to get out of it. So this is like a little pilot to test it and see what happens, and to give us a better sense of what to ask for in the future. And two is to just be wise with our coal tax funds, because we do have some needs that I'll talk about coming up that we might want to just kind of keep that money in reserve. I mean, we have lots of needs and not enough money.
Would this be appropriate to maybe draw money from both the coal tax and from the trust? Would that get us? But if this is sufficient, then obviously don't spend more money. But if it would be a better chance of success, should we look for other sources of funding as well?
I think we could, and I would think that at least as a pilot, looking to the trust is a good idea. I agree with Tracy. I think we don't know what we don't know at this point. The idea behind going out for a limited solicitation is really modeled on the relationship that the State Library has with Cindy Crispin. She's been our early childhood consultant now for many years because she has that expertise, and she can come to us and say, I really want us to focus our learning on the mind in the making model, for example, and we think about funding that specific need. She was integral in creating the Ready to Read program with Sarah Groves. She helps to support a great deal of learning around early childhood for librarians. We anticipate having this consultant do something very similar with the economic development community, and we're even less familiar with that community than we were with the early learning.
It just seems to me like this is a pretty long list for $10,000.
I think it will be, and I hope once we have a consultant on board, might come back and say, I really want to do X, and then we could come to the commission with a trust request when we know what X is. But
it seems like it's important to do. It's a great opportunity. So
I think it is, and I think the model we've had with Cindy has been successful. It's been a way for us to leverage additional expertise that we don't have on staff, and to really grow a program that's been successful around the state. And that's what I would anticipate coming from this. We just don't have an idea of exactly what that model looks like right now.
Hey, Jenny.
Yeah.
This is Dana Carmichael again. I was at an Imagine If presentation, and they were talking about their relationship with the Flathead Chamber of Commerce.
Yep.
And it looks like there's a Montana Chamber of Commerce as well.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if we pursue some kind of relationship with the Montana Chamber of Commerce, if that wouldn't shake loose some businesses that might be willing to add money to the Montana State Library initiatives.
That's not a bad idea at all, Dana. Yep. And I think, one of the things we've talked about is that having someone who has existing relationships within the economic development community puts us that much farther ahead in building those relationships with the chambers, for example.
Yep.
In our area, the chamber is actually more helpful than our local economic development, just because of what they're looking at.
That's good to know.
Our economic is more getting businesses and not so much established businesses.
Okay, that's good to know.
This is Susie, and one of the things that we're looking at is there's community development block grants every year that go out. I think some urban ones and some rural ones, and they have to do community needs assessment every year. And so we got their needs assessment, and their second highest rated need was education and counseling for renters, home buyers, and homeowners, which is a place where we could tap in. So if community development block grants are all doing those community assessments, that's something that maybe we could tap into to find out what communities need, and that's a pretty low-cost way of getting that info.
That's a great suggestion, Susie. These are all good suggestions that we can include when we go out for a limited solicitation and actually create a contract with someone.
Any other thoughts on this one? Questions? Concerns?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh.
It sounds like looks like
someone's trying
to speak up, but we can't hear.
It's Pamela. Can you?
Oh, Pamela.
Hear me or...
Pamela, we can't hear you.
Okay. All right.
Here, that's getting better.
Oh, that's better?
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just had a question, actually. I know you have on the list the Montana Economic Development Association. Is there any thought to, or would it even be helpful or appropriate to have the Montana Department of Labor involved in any way, or as this person would serve as a liaison with them as well? Mm-hmm. Or do you think you get more bang for your buck with the economic development orgs?
See, on ours in Miles City, our economic development group actually has someone from the Department of Labor on that board.
Oh, that's interesting to
and
know.
I think most of them probably do.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
Okay.
Is there somebody in the governor's office that is sort of in charge of promulgating business?
Yep. There's the economic development office. There's a number of offices. The governor's has the Office of Economic Development. There's the Small Business Administration, which is in the Department of Commerce. The Department of Labor has the Workforce Development Committee. So I think that points to the need for a liaison that can liaise with all of these different offices. And I didn't know that the labor was working with economic development.
If you look at most of those boards, they do have representatives from
That-
almost all those
yeah.
different factors within the area on their board.
That's great to
And the
know.
colleges are represented on them, so.
Yeah, and having someone who knows that and knows who these players are would really be to our advantage. I've had one person this idea was actually born out of someone from the Economic Development Office contact me based on our information awareness, our public awareness campaign, saying, "I love your campaign," and he was basically asking how he could help, and that's what sort of prompted the idea of hiring a contractor. So I don't know if he would be interested in a contract like this or not, and we would go through a procurement process regardless. But
And learning how the libraries could fit into what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
Would really be good for all of us.
Good for us, good for them.
Yeah.
Having a consistent voice for all of us.
Well, and Jason Riddle, that
Yes.
was in Baker.
Yep.
That was economic development. I mean, now
Mhm.
he's here in Mako.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
what a great.
Connection.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Cody actually had a couple of really good questions. His first question was, how does this relate to the Information Powers Growth Project? And I think, Cody, that project gives us a lot of data to share with this person and build on. So I do think there is that tie. And no, I don't think we have any idea of what kind of industries we want to look at. That's a great question, but I would say that's where I think Susie's comments about the community development block grants might really help us. Because I'm presuming if we look at that across the state, some themes are going to rise to the top, and that's where we should focus our energy and limited resources to benefit the most communities and libraries. Did I answer all of your questions?
I presume since we have limited resources in the end, that what we'll be doing is identifying partners and also low-hanging fruit to figure out strategically where we can best apply libraries' efforts towards meeting users' needs and also pursuing the economic development. That there be probably a long laundry list, but we'll only have access to the easy stuff.
Yep.
So, and we don't have that list now.
Right, exactly. You know what, thinking back again to the early literacy model, working with Cindy, we were able to identify gaps in knowledge and learning for librarians that we addressed, gaps in content resources, the physical space in libraries, relationships with ready-to-read advisory councils in those local communities. And I think by working with someone with expertise in these areas and relationships in these areas, I hope that person could come back to us and point out those exact kinds of things.
We've identified 100 things. These are the things that we think there's an
Yep.
opportunity and a pressing need to address.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another partner, someone had mentioned educating on renting or home ownership. You'd want to loop in with legal services and Montana Law Help.
Yep. Perfect.
We got lots of great stuff.
Perfect. Yep.
And for the record, Cody just says he agrees with Bruce that this is a long list of things for someone to work on for 10,000.
But hopefully, let's see if we're successful, but maybe a multi-year effort.
The other thing I would share, because this is a very practical point, is because of cash flow, we aren't going to be able to spend this until most likely after January of 2020, and it has to be spent by June 30th. So that's a pretty limited window as well, but that means we have an opportunity to ask for more funding if this is successful and we have a clear path going forward.
Well, presuming the NAC forwards this to the commission
Mm-hmm.
Enthusiastically, then I would think that the commission would be very open to thinking about springing money from the trust if it turned out that was an important thing to do. That was if there was an opportunity.
That's an easier discussion. Our reasons.
You know, I think it's important to look into how the library would fit into the economic development councils that are around the state. But I don't know how much further you'd want to go than figuring out
Where to
what we
start.
can offer, what they can offer, and then go from there. I mean, I think, I go to the meetings and they have an agenda of what they want to accomplish. So finding out how the libraries fit into that, I think, for the first time would be important. And then expanding or deciding, you know what, attending the meeting is important, but we're not necessarily key players in that. So.
It started at 9:30 and it's scheduled to go to 11. But I didn't have to go to Helena. And
Yeah.
Okay.
got that.
I mean, I don't know how anybody else.
I don't have any helpers this week, so anything you want to do.
Getting anything else online there? No
No.
one has any comments?
Cody, actually, with his questions and then his comment about he didn't think 10,000 was going to be sufficient for this long of a list.
Yeah, kind of depends on, what you want that position to do and what you're expecting them to do.
We'll get a start, and if we need to ask for more money from the trust, then we'll do that.
Yes, launching.
I'm resisting making motions because I get to vote on it a second time in the commission.
Yeah.
But I'm eager to vote on this.
They keep waiting for somebody else who's listening to make a motion, so.
Okay, pressure's on you folks online, those in the room that said you need to make the motion.
What was that?
Oh, Cody says, should we weed the list down a bit? Should we actually shorten this?
I think we should leave it broad. What will ultimately drive the focus of the work would be a contract with the person we're contracting with. But I think this information will help us recruit a contractor.
And I assume that the opportunities that we can actually do will sort of emerge from this list. And that would be what we would do.
And I'm thinking if you have a person that goes to the different economic development councils and sees what each region wants to do, then maybe you'll be able to go forward after you see what they're doing. So I mean, 10,000 maybe for preliminary is all right.
So I don't mind making a motion. This is Dana. If you help me draft what you want the motion to say, because I'm in the tall grass on this one.
It's going to say approve economic development funding proposal as presented by Amelia.
Perfect. So moved.
And I will second.
Great. Any other comments? Cody has just said, so it's easier to go forward later and say this was what was accomplished and this is what we want to do now. Are there any other comments, questions?
I just was going to say this was a big goal since I've been on the NAC almost a couple of years now, and this was, a prominent goal. So it'll be exciting to see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we'll have staff probably lean on some of you to help us draft that contract and go through that limited solicitation process.
Okay.
We're just pointing at you. We can make a motion that.
Let me know.
No, I was struck also by the presentation at the annual conference from the legal folks. I really agree that you guys have a really important part to play in this. And it would be good to make sure that stays in.
So, hearing no further comments or questions, all those in favor, please say aye or type aye in chat.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then those of you who are opposed, please say or type nay. And do we have any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. It is pretty exciting to move forward with.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I just have Amelia asked me to give you a quick update on where she's at with the homelessness and civil discourse work that you had also had as your priorities at your March meeting. She has reached out to Kim Anderson at Humanities Montana, who is very interested in putting some kind of programming that can travel around to libraries about homelessness. In addition, Kara put Amelia in touch with the Colorado State Library, who has a kind of a book kits or discussion kits, and one of them is about homelessness. So Amelia's going to learn more about what's in that kit and how they are using it. The other piece, the civil discourse work, Humanities Montana is also very interested in. And this is one where I think the NAC can really help Amelia with giving her input, because there's a lot of different ways we could go with civil discourse. And Amelia and I have had some good conversations since she started about this topic. Humanities Montana is perfectly willing to provide facilitation training for librarians or volunteers to learn how to facilitate difficult conversations. But there's a lot of different ways civil discourse could go. And I would like to actually maybe propose this even as a topic to explore at your August meeting, because we could go the civil discourse way. That's kind of considered the traditional method of talking about difficult conversations. But I know, others have proposed this idea of communities of kindness and building connection. Others have really appreciated the work of the Harwood Institute, which is kind of building on hope. So as Amelia and I sit down and we kind of try to tackle this topic, we really feel like we could use some focus and some guidance and some help from librarians on the ground and kind of which way you want to go. Knowing that we could go multiple ways, because there are people like Gavin, the director of the Billings Public Library, who's perfectly comfortable facilitating really hard conversations. But there are also some librarians out there who are not going to be comfortable with that, but they do want to create those connections in their communities and have community members talk to each other in a more civil way, in a kinder way. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's some different paths we could take, but Amelia and I would really benefit from working with you as librarians. Mm-hmm. So that is something I would like your help on, just to kind of get some focus on that and decide a path going forward. Any questions for me about what Amelia's been doing?
I might have a question for Honor,
okay,
or some of you. The homelessness count and survey, do you know, Honor, if that is coordinated with other counts or surveys around the state, or was that just Missoula, or do you know?
I'm not sure. I know that the whole state does it, yeah, but I don't know that they all do it the same day or whatever. We just were really lucky this year that we had a student in the social work program at the university who was doing her internship with us, and so she had input into that survey and put 5 library questions on the survey. So it was really great to be able to find that information out.
Absolutely.
But I think all large communities especially do that count every year, because that's where they get their federal funding from.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's something that we need to research more. And I think potentially a deliverable could be trying to get the questions, Honor, like you had inserted into these other community surveys as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the other great thing we found out is they look at our library staff as being very helpful to them, which, sometimes we wonder if we are very helpful. Yeah. But for them to know that they were doing a survey that was not a library survey, so to speak, they could say what they thought. And so it was really great.
That's really cool.
Any other comments or questions? And Jenny kind of gave you a DPLA pilot update in her state library update. So we will continue to keep you posted on that one. The next item on the agenda.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So it's not directly related to the DPL pilot update, but it's tangentially related. The NAC approved funding for the community assessment of, or the assessment of community needs and wants around electronic resources. Can you give us an update about what's going on with that?
Hi, Susie. It's Kara. So
Hey.
we had inquiries from 3 different organizations, and all of them responded saying that they could not complete the entire scope of the work with the budget we were proposing. And we received one formal response from Lyrasis that was way over budget. And so following the shared catalog meeting, I may look at that and see and discuss with Tracy if there's a way that we could take some elements from that solicitation that would be useful within that budget, but otherwise we may have to revisit the scope of the evaluation and what we can do with the budget that was approved.
I am sorry. So the guy that gave us that estimate didn't even give a proposal? Is that what you're telling me? That I was totally off on the...
So Susie,
okay. Thank you.
Yes, Kara, and just kind of jump in here and say, the gentleman who gave us that proposal, the labor hours that would go in would have actually been on state library staff, and we didn't have the capacity to do that. That's why the proposal was so low.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other questions? So the next item on the agenda is hiring an intern to help with Aspen documentation. The IT staff has really made a lot of progress on improving Aspen. And when I kind of asked them how can we take this to the next level, they said to me that they have an opportunity for a couple of interns, because it's very concrete work, to be able to create documentation, which we desperately need, and to also assist, I would say, library board members and maybe non-public library directors with using Aspen to just kind of bring more people into Aspen. So we have kind of 2 distinct needs. One is a customer support person to work with those libraries directly, and the other is very much, as you can probably tell from the list, an IT focus with very more sophisticated IT skill sets and very much about the relationships that are going on behind the database in Aspen and how we use it. And so I'm just requesting this. I'm certainly open to feedback, any thoughts you have. This is just something we feel would help us use that product and improve it for libraries.
So would they be like paid interns, or is it more of a stipend, or have you decided that yet? I'm just curious of what 9,000, how that works.
I can actually tell you, because this is what we did to make Aspen go live. They are paid interns. They are paid an hourly wage. They usually work up to 20 hours a week through the summer. And they typically, the ones we hired before, reported to our IT staff and were supervised and guided by them. And so last year, one of the interns called every single public library director and one-on-one took them through Aspen and getting them an account, getting them set up. And then the other intern was working on the code in the background to get the system to go live and to fix the bugs.
Interesting.
Yes.
Where do you recruit?
Helena
Okay, College. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Helena College is
We
doing
ended
great
up
stuff.
hiring one of those interns who's why
That's-
Aspen works well.
That's great.
Yeah. It's a neat project. I gotta tell you, it's very, very fun to have a couple of college students in your building working on something. And I know the IT staff would really appreciate the help. This is, particularly the documentation piece, is something they really feel like is needed. But I think we also see a real value in having that customer support person. Any other questions or comments for me? right, so hearing none, I would entertain a motion. How about somebody else from online?
I so move. This is Susie. I move that we approve the proposal to hire an intern to help with Aspen documentation as presented.
All right, thank you, Susie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say or type aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're down to our last two items. And I kind of talked earlier about how I wanted to keep some of the poll tax funds in reserve. And part of my reason for doing this is, we are currently, I'll just go down to the bottom level. We are currently have hired a contractor to visit every single public library to complete the Gigabit Toolkit, which looks at their hardware inventory and their internet speeds. I could see some information coming out of that might lead me to want to come back to the NAC and ask you, hey, what do you think about helping these libraries out? That's one thing we have on the plate. The MSC may have some needs that I'd like to bring back to you with security and securing data. And also, we don't have to allocate all of this money right away. And the part of me that's maybe a little bit more spontaneous likes to leave a little bit money out there to just see what might come up that we might identify that would really help libraries in our communities. And so I will update this budget based on kind of your different proposals. It won't change very much, but I'll need to add take an additional 5,000 from the bottom line. But I would like you to kind of be thinking about any needs you hear about. Like if you hear repeat kinds of needs from your librarians that you serve, that would be really useful for us to know. That's kind of one of the ways I rely on you as NAC members. Is, we certainly try to talk to librarians every chance we get, but you are librarians working with your peers. And so if there's something that you need from us that fits within our strategic framework and the LSTA goals, please let me know, because we do have this funding and we do want to use it to benefit our communities.
I would really love to have, this Bruce, I would really love to have an economist, not necessarily just a numbers, but an economist basically pick a public library someplace and talk about its economic value to the community in a really comprehensive kind of way that wouldn't be comprehensive for the whole state of Montana, but something that we could point to and say, this is what a library can return to a community. And not just in terms of the standard economic financial sort of measures, but some of the other kind of measures, opportunities gained, whatever economists know about. Economists have a different way of looking at the world than do most of us librarians. And I think that would be really useful information to have in terms of our outreach, but I think it would also be, it might make us ask different questions about what we're doing and about how we judge the degree to which we've been successful as a state library assisting other libraries doing their things. And I just don't see how we're going to ever get that perspective without hiring it done.
I agree.
I'd just love to see that.
We always list services we provide, but we never put money figure with it. Like in our library, we have the AARP group that does taxes for a couple hundred people. We never say how much money did that save those people from having that service provided in the library. There's never a monetary figure that we add to anything we do, even with the kids. We never come up with money. I mean, there's never a money amount attached. Yeah. It's always a service we provide, not a monetary figure. And sometimes I think trying to estimate that monetary figure would really help everyone, saying this is what we've added to your community.
I would bet you a full steak dinner that if we did a number thing, we would find that for every buck you spend, or that the community spends on the library, that there are some multiple of that bucks returned. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be an interesting number, but I think that there's also stories that are embedded in that are, that we've been asking for anecdotally, but it would be great to see an economist, someone who is really wise about it's not just the bucks, but it's also opportunities and problems being solved, and I don't know what. To kind of construct a narrative that had both a numeric aspect and then also this non-numeric. And so we could say, for Miles City, we did this study, or whatever city we picked. We want to pick someone that we could actually get done. That there was, for every dollar there was this much returned, and et cetera. And that would be something that every community library could take and go from that.
Yep.
I'm also interested in that in non-public libraries, but I think public libraries would be a really smart place to start.
Yep.
It would also help when we go and talk to the business community and say,
Yep.
So you didn't know this, but for every buck that gets spent, we're returning $1 million. Probably that won't be the truth.
Yeah.
I would just love to see that happen. And I don't think it's going to happen unless we spend the money.
I think that hiring this data coordinator, while that position wouldn't do this study, would help us determine who best to hire and what kinds of focus we would want that economist to focus on. And then there's also always the learning from Ripple. The University of Texas at Austin did a study 2 years ago, and I think their measure was $4.64 for every dollar invested in libraries.
That would be fabulous to see.
Yeah.
So if sometime the NAC wanted to bring a proposal like that to the commission, I think it would be terrific. Just saying.
Jody agrees. She loved your idea.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you, Bruce. We've tried to do that several different ways on site, and it's really difficult just because we don't have all the tools we need to be able to do it.
Right.
Economists just look at the world differently.
And the other thing, we don't have a standard of what things would cost. Like when you're doing something with the children, what would it cost to provide this if you worked a library?
Right.
Yeah, because we think about everything always being free.
Exactly.
Well, nothing is free.
Yeah.
But the things we do have value.
Yeah.
And some of the value is monetary, and some of the things are non-monetary.
Yeah.
We know that if we get kids who are successfully educated and can somehow stay out of jail, that whatever we've done to kind of encourage that, yields huge kind of financial rewards or returns as they mature into adults and age through the work process. And economists think like that, and librarians don't. We're too nice.
Is there a question mark by chance or no? Yeah. Oh, okay, I'll find it. It's actually.
I'm sensing interest in this idea. If there are any NAC members who would like to volunteer to sit down with me and maybe come up with a proposal to bring back to the NAC. Okay, Bruce, anybody?
With as long as there's someone else.
Yeah, someone else has to do it.
I would just like.
That'd be great, Tracy.
Okay.
I would just like to say, can we get this position hired?
Yes, we totally can.
Please.
I don't see us doing this right now.
Yeah, but if
this
we could
would be in
capture
the late fall, if that helps you.
Yeah, but let's capture some thinking.
Okay.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to find out what we find out.
We will definitely reach Jenny. And Cody, I took note, so I added that people who have expressed interest in this idea, once we hire someone, see where we're going. Bruce, Honor, and Cody.
Fun.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on this agenda item? Okay. So the next agenda item is just about the August retreat planning. know, like I said, we typically don't, I mean, we usually always have some business we need you to take care of, but we do try to make this an all-day, face-to-face, kind of more engaging, big picture thinking and or deep learning. And I'd be interested in knowing what you would like to discuss or focus on.
One of the things that I would like to focus on, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes if you guys have other ideas, but we have been working on updating the Library Development Study Task Force recommendations. It's hard to believe that those are almost 7 years old now. Where does the time go? But I would like to spend some time getting some more sort of deep feedback from the NAC about how those have been reshaped, because I do think that that is an important tool to help inform library development, and it's one that needs to continue to evolve if it's going to be useful.
Anything else you're interested in? I'm looking at you because you
I'm
usually
going
have
off.
big ideas.
Remember, I'm going off, so I'm not volunteering faces.
Is that allowed?
This is my end.
This is basically good. That was Sonia, by the way, everyone.
I think that's allowed.
Well, Federation coordinator, whoever gets to have a term is next.
This is Pamela. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm really interested, and this is not exactly a new concept, but growth mindset. Has that already been hashed through? Just a portion on that would be really helpful.
That's a good topic. If you have someone you would recommend to lead that, if you could send me that information, I'd be grateful, Pamela.
Sure. I don't know of anybody, but I'll see what I can find.
Okay. Any others? It's okay, I'll go ahead and add the civil discourse. Trying to figure that out.
We typically do kind of a look back at what priorities were identified the previous year or 2 years and kind of see where they stand and
We've
kind of
not
thing.
done that, but that would be a really great thing
Yeah,
to
I
do.
think so too.
Yeah. So I will add that. If you think of anything else, please let me know. You know how to reach me.
I need to duck out, but thanks for the great conversation.
Thank you, Jen. All right, so we are actually down to just, is there any further public comment? Or are there any other business and announcements that any NAC members would like to make?
This is Pamela again. I'd like to use this opportunity to kind of maybe reach out to some folks. Colette and I had communicated back and forth about figuring out a possible way of setting up some kind of structure for e-resources and access for the K-12 schools and systems, and she has referred me on to Tom Franta, who's at SWIM, Southwest Montana School Services, and I've been in contact with him, and we are trying to look at a couple of deals. I've got ProQuest working on one, and EBSCO has been working on another for like a core set of databases. And at this point, I've got like one offer, but our problem, our challenge is, well, one, we needed a person to serve as the liaison to all the different school systems, which Tom is willing to do, but we certainly could use the input of some school librarians on the offers that we have in hand. And we were thinking it might be great if we could get a representative from like a small, medium, large school system or school institution. I wonder if there's anyone on the committee that would be interested, or if you could make a recommendation.
So Pam, this is Dana.
Hello, Dana.
Hello. I would be happy to look at what you have gotten from ProQuest. A lot of the schools, Gail created an attractive offer to schools, and several schools are using the Gail suite. And you can, I think it was 5 databases from their collection for like $1,200.
1,200 total?
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's pretty good. I'll have
Yeah.
to admit. The offers we're looking at are much bigger, but we're also hoping to get like statewide if we could. But okay, so Gail,
And would this be available through the trails?
Well, we're kind of working on that. I mean, if it has to be set up individually by each school, then we do it that way.
Okay. And the way
So
Kara Orban actually helped facilitate the Overdrive Consortium for school libraries. And the way it works is every school signs up for and pays a flat rate based on student population.
Right.
And then Overdrive bills each school individually.
Okay. That's good to know. So we may be able to do something comparable to that. I have to admit the numbers that are coming in are much higher than 1,200, but that gives me something to, and that's 1,200 for access across the state.
No. Well, what do you mean by access across the state?
Well, when you say 1,200, is that per institution?
That's what that's what my school pays. And then the high school pays about 2,200. They buy 9 databases.
Okay, that helps, because I was thinking, wow, I cannot beat that. So
No.
Okay.
Every institution pays that.
Okay.
And some schools are doing just like one database for $600, so they'll get the generic kid search or something.
Okay.
And Pamela, through ProQuest, Missoula has a contract for any library in the state that wants to have Heritage Quest or Ancestry or newspaper.com.
Nice.
And
You know how much?
it goes by population for each group.
Okay.
The prices are, I think, pretty low, like $635 for Heritage Quest, $755 for Ancestry, and then newspaper.com varied a little bit more, but it's at least $1,000.
And that's ProQuest?
Yeah, it's through ProQuest.
Okay.
That's great to know. I think we were probably looking at, from our perspective anyway, some of the more, the usual suspects, as it were, so that when these students are out of high school, they know what databases are, point one and point two. They're, if it's EBSCO suite, it'd be great if we could be consistent all the way through. Or whatever, what have you.
That would be great, but I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but I'm not going to give up. So
okay,
we're going to keep chipping away at it.
Okay.
Thanks.
But yeah, I would look at anything you needed me to look at.
I appreciate that very much. We'll send something your way.
Okay.
Pamela, this is Kate Peterson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I would also be very willing to look at anything that you have and participate in that conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right.
include you in it.
Thanks, Michael. So the only other comment Cody had is there any general concern about wheat farmers losing money or lack of funding coming in at the state level? And I would just say, Cody, that at this point, the legislative fiscal division hasn't. Are there any other comments?
Tracy, you really cut out when you were saying whatever you did to answer that question. Could you say it again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cody's question was, is there a concern about dropping funding from wheat farmers losing money or just, a drop in state funds? And I had said that the Legislative Fiscal Division does an analysis of revenues over the 2-year period, and they didn't highlight any kind of large concerns with dropping in funds. Doesn't mean things won't change. They didn't highlight any concerns. Any other announcements, comments? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for a good meeting. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Head to the brand office.